begin. Hello, everyone. My name is Tahi Chappelle, and if you are here or watching, you are tuning into the Media Access Workshop organized by the Philadelphia Association of Black Journalists and PhillyCam. For this part of tonight's program, we are in the second of two 30-minute panels. The second and final panel tonight is Grow Your Own, how to build your personal brand as a media entrepreneur. And also, we're going to talk about how to get your stories and content shared as a media entrepreneur. In a volatile news world, the journalism industry continues to face disruption, layoffs, and unpredictable work conditions. Many upcoming and current journalists and media makers have to strike out on their own to build their portfolio of work, brand, reputation in order to attempt to be hired full-time or do recurring work with other news outlets and other industries as well. What are some tips to navigate this uncertain industry? How do you build your presence and work your way up for steady income for all the content that you are creating and all the media and narratives that you're producing? We're going to talk about that and more. A brief background on myself as a moderator. I've worked about 10 years in the media industry. 8 of those years focused on social media production, brand management, and digital and social strategies for a variety of news outlets. I worked at 2 local TV stations in Phoenix and Sacramento, and 2 print publications, which include the Washington Post and the Philadelphia Inquirer. My most recent role was a program manager for the media policy and media advocacy group, Free Press. So if you're really involved or interested in narrative and media reparations, check out Free Press. Got to plug them in. I've been a PABJ member since 2018. I've been on the board for the last 5 years. I think I'm one of the oldest board members of this place. I'm going to introduce our esteemed panelists, and then we are going to get into the questions. So, starting with Kyra. Kyra is currently serving as the Director of Communications for City Council Member at Large Sharon Vaughn. She previously served in the same capacity for former council member Derek Green for 5 years. She has deep experience in the media and communications field, where she also worked at CBS 3 and was also a publicist at MB and Associates Public Relations. Gabriella Watson-Burkett, correct, is an award-winning filmmaker, producer, and educator based in Philadelphia, born and raised in Brazil, and of Peruvian descent. Gabriella draws from her multicultural heritage to create documentaries that inspire social change. Her projects explore the intersection of Latinx culture, Black identity, women empowerment, and community voices. Gabriella is one of the co-founders of Presente Media, a creative collective led by Latinx artists focused on social justice. And last but certainly not least, Denise Clay Murray is an independent journalist specializing in politics. She's a regular contributor to Philadelphia Sunday Sun and the co-host of the Philadelphia Hall Monitor on WPPM. This is PhillyCam, hey. Her work has also appeared in the Philadelphia Inquirer, Philadelphia Magazine, Love Now Media, Resolve Philly, and on websites Keystone News, Momentum, All Digiocracy, Time.com, the BBC, and the Australian Broadcast Company. She was also a former PABJ president as well. Thank you, Denise. Can I get a round of applause for our awesome panelists? All right, folks, let's get to it. So we're going to start with Denise and Gabriella first with this question. Tell us how you went into the entrepreneurial journey. Was it by design? Was it by need? Candidly speaking, how has been this journey in your entrepreneur life?
You can go. Okay. Well, I started out entrepreneurially by deciding that I was in a newsroom in Bucks County. And I decided that after 5 years that there would not be a sixth. But I didn't necessarily want to stop being a journalist. I had freelanced when I first started out in the business, like little things here and there. But it was around 2005 that I decided that I was going to make that my career. And I was going to work for myself. Now, part of that was because I didn't feel like dealing with some of the personalities I had to deal with in the newsroom. And part of that, the other part was I wanted to tell the stories I wanted to tell. And when you work for yourself, you have a better chance of doing that. And fortunately, the media business is caught up somewhat to where they will actually give you money for that. And another thing that kind of made me decide that I was going to stay a full-time freelancer is the days of you working for one news outlet for 30 years are over. And they've been over for a while. So it's really in your best interest if you want to do this to, yeah, if you can get a gig in a newsroom and for a corporation, terrific, do that. But also know how to carve out your own space so that if and when they decide they don't like you anymore and they lay you off, you have somewhere to bounce. Never rely on just one check. That is what I learned back in 2005. Never rely on just one check, because if that check gets taken away from you, guess what? You have no check. So it's best to have more than one check so that nobody can, put you in a position where you're like, okay, how do I pay my rent this month? Because that's not a good feeling.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. So, hi everyone. Oi, how do you say in Brazil? So when I started my career, I graduated with communications degree, and I always navigated between the newsroom and trying to make it as a filmmaker. And so one part of me always thought, okay, I need to build my career as a filmmaker. I need to think about it strategically because it's going to take time. I am not rich. My parents are not artists. So it's going to be hard. So I thought about it, how can I create a body of work that represented my vision? But I still always thought about working in the newsroom as well. Then fast forward 13 years, I came to Philadelphia, I pursued my MFA, I worked in various newsrooms here in the city as a multimedia producer. And the pandemic hit, and me and Crystal Sotomayor and Melissa Beatriz, we came together. And there was so many needs within our community not feeling represented in the media, and us feeling disposable, like Denise was saying. Many of us that we knew were laid off immediately. Many of us started to be overworked, and it just fell a lot. And within that, again, the Latinos in Philadelphia lacked a lot of information. So we decided to come together to create Presente Media and to support ourselves, to tell the stories that we felt our community needed, to tell the stories that we wanted to tell when we pitched, right? Like we said in the first, and people didn't want to tell the stories. So we're like, okay, we're going to do on our own. So it was planned a little bit, but definitely circumstances expedited that we became official, right? Became legally, okay, we're going to constitute Presente, and we need that because we got to a point that we wanted more freedom. We wanted more community. So that's the story.
Thank you. This question is for everybody, but I'll start with Kyra. Kyra, you did have some, like I mentioned, experience as a publicist, and you managed various clients' accounts and obtained media placements across television, print, and radio. Can you talk to us about how you were able to work with your clients to get those placements in? Were those clients more entrepreneurial in spirit and background? Were they more corporate journalists or corporate content creators? How did you work to get those stories and those visions seen and recognized?
So, and disclaimer, I am not an entrepreneur, so that is why I didn't want to speak on that first question. But needless to say, I pivoted into public relations coming out of CBS3, and I think coming away from a newsroom where I had established so many relationships with so many different reporters, producers, I was able to actually leverage that, flipping the desk, if you will, because I was on the assignment desk. I would be one of the people checking the emails as a production assistant, looking at the pitches, looking at the news releases, and I laughed when Kaylani mentioned getting the same emails from the same person constantly. So when it came to my clients and the accounts that I managed, you first, and I heard this mentioned in the last panel, you first need to make sure that whatever you're pitching or whatever that person's specialty is, that you can somehow make that pitch timely or relatable to something that's happening currently, whether, and you use your own discernment, whether it's a seasonal thing, whether it is an evergreen topic like health, because there are certain topics will always be ever changing and evolving. So I think primarily utilizing existing relationships, nurturing those relationships. I even sometimes had to make a joke when I would call and check on certain pitches. I'm like, guys, especially calling CBS 3, I'm like, y'all know I really don't want to do this, but I'm working too. Any chance you and so when you can kind of use a little levity and not nag a person to death, which was something that I always felt uneasy about because I already knew how the game worked. I already knew what timelines were for, when we come out of those production meetings, you already know which shows you're working for and that sort of thing. So I did my best not to burn certain relationships by nagging people constantly.
Gabriella and Denise, what are some things that you wish you had known or learned or were taught by somebody before you decided to start building your own media brand or your media company or your media presence? What are some lessons that you learned along the way?
Well, probably the biggest lesson I learned is get everything in writing and be very, very specific about what it is, what the assignment is, what the turnaround time is, what the deliverables are, how much you're going to get paid, when you're going to get paid, because I was told when I first got started, there are 3 people that you need to make this work. You need the talent, which is of course you. You need someone who's going to make sure that your money is straight once it does come in, and you need a lawyer. Because sometimes, and this is why I no longer call myself a freelancer, too many people get stuck on the free part. And I'm like, no, you can't get stuck on the free part, because if you get stuck on the free part, then I gotta call my lawyer, and I gotta pay for that, and then that's just gonna make me, even madder at you and demand legal fees on top of the money you already owe me. So make sure that you have people in place that will advocate for you. That's probably the biggest lesson I got. That, and do not, whatever you do, do not, as an independent journalist, take your taxes to H&R Block. Do not do that. Because, first of all, the folks at H&R Block are not actual accountants. There are people who they taught how to do easy forms and stuff like that. When you come to an accountant and you have stuff like stuff you need to deduct and different things that you need for your business, like things that you may have bought, to do your business, or if you went away somewhere on an assignment and you need to deduct that, they are going to look at you like you have 2 heads. So another very important person to have is an accountant. And it's got to be somebody who understands media, because not all accountants do. It's got to be somebody that understands media, how it works, what a 1099 form is, why you've got a stack of them if you're doing really well. And, you have to have people in place that can help you with the business end of your business, because they don't teach you, they're starting to teach you the business end in journalism school. But that's only because there are more freelancers than there used to be. But when I came out of Temple in 1992, they weren't talking about entrepreneurial journalism. So, when I took my taxes to H&R Block that first time, it was not pretty. It just was not.
Gabriella?
Yes, no, I agree with Denise. We have to have all the systems in place to succeed. The attorney, the accountant, that's great. So since she brought that up, I'll talk about more the vision, the importance of narrowing your vision and showing up for yourself every day. The thing of being an entrepreneur is that if you don't do it, nobody's going to do it for you. That's the pros and the cons in itself. So you need to create a plan, a 1-year plan, a 5-year, a 10-year plan, study really your goals and stick to it. It's not an easy path, but if you don't believe it, nobody will. So really treat it like it's the most important job, because it is, and stick to your plan.
Let's talk a little bit about, and this has been alluded to, fundraising and financing. How do you find the money to get the work done? And how do you make sure that you stand on what you work on, your value, and what you deserve to get paid for your work, to make sure that you get the money for all the work that you're doing in terms of your media production, your content creation? I'll start with you, Denise.
Now, I joke with people that I walk around with a sandwich board on that says, "We'll write for food." But I do not literally mean that. And for the longest time, I would give people me at a discount. I don't do that anymore. Because when you get me, you are not just, getting an independent journalist, you're getting an independent journalist with experience in radio, television, broadcast, that has 31 years in the business and has not only been published nationally, but internationally. So you're going to have to pay for that. And we can negotiate that. I'm better with startups. Startups, I will give a discount to. But if you're like, say, if you're the Philadelphia Inquirer and you want me to do an op-ed for you, you're going to have to come out your pocket. And fortunately, these days, because particularly with local news, folks have finally realized that there is a local news desert going on, and that there are some places like I live in Delaware. I can't find the Wilmington News Journal anywhere. So there are a lot of news deserts, particularly in this area. And because of that, you can get funding for grants. People like the Lenfest Foundation, they give a lot of money toward this. If you're in New Jersey, you have the Center for Cooperative Journalism. They come across a lot of grant money. And there's grants like the Knight Foundation and all these various foundations. But if you rely completely and only on philanthropy, that is only going to be good as long as local news is the flavor of the month. The minute it is no longer the flavor of the month, that money is going to start to dry up. So you have to come up with other ways to earn money. Hall Monitor, the show I do here on WPPM, we were fortunate enough to get a Lenfest grant as part of the Every Voice, Every Vote project. But in addition to that, we also have a newsletter that people subscribe to. We do fundraising. We've connected with this organization that works with independent journalists called IndieGraph that's helping us with that. We're about to become a nonprofit, so we can join the Institute for Nonprofit Media and access, what they can do, in terms of like helping us raise money. Start out, if you can get some grant money, definitely do it, because you're not going to be able to start your media company with what you make at a bake sale unless you sell a whole lot of cookies. But have a plan B, C, D, and E when plan A no longer works.
Gabriella, the same question for you. How do you negotiate contracts? How do you negotiate getting paid for your worth?
Yeah, good question. As an independent filmmaker, a media maker, I have my rates, and again, as Denise brought up, it varies, right? If it's corporate, if it's nonprofit, and I present and I bring my value. As Denise pointed out, people think making a video is easy, and it's not. Media making, we invest first education, equipment, just to have a great camera. We're talking thousands of dollars. So you need to put that on your pricing, and you need to also create quality content and show your portfolio and say, that's why I'm charging you, because there's a lot of investment into that. So you create these rates for yourself, and then you stick to it. You need to value yourself. And then when it comes to Presente Media, we are LLC, we are a limited corporation, but we also have a fiscal sponsor, which is Culture Works, so that we can operate as a 503, as a nonprofit, and get grants coming through. But as Denise said, it's not a steady income, so we need to diversify our revenue. So thinking about newsletters, thinking about specific content. So we are in that wavelength, thinking how we can expand our revenue sources. And we also do work for hire, too, as a media production.
Kyra, this question is for you, because you are a communications professional, and you also are not only and have done the pitching, but you're also receiving the pitching as well from people who want to engage with you, the council member in the office. What should the audience take away from when engaging with someone like you, who's a communications director? How should they build a relationship with you? How should they get on your radar, especially if they want to get the council member's office involved in an event or get some exposure that could help them with their media exposure as well? What should they know about working with you in kind of the political realm?
So I think the first thing I would say is pay attention to who your local elected officials are. That's first and foremost. Know what their passions are, know what really drives them, and this is really, really key, I would say, especially for at-large members. I'm in city council, so there are 7 at-large members, meaning members who don't represent a specific district. So, for example, when I served under former council member Green, most people who know him know he is a very big advocate of small businesses. He also is the father of a child on the autism spectrum. So neurodiverse spaces, disability spaces, and all of that type of work. Really kind of pay attention. Google is your friend. Google them. See, who they surround themselves with. Just start really paying close attention, because then and that's actually one of the nice things I'll say, having been on the opposite side where I'm pitching constantly for a particular client, public figures pitch themselves. So there's really, to be honest, not a whole lot of outreach you have to do to people, short of if we're hosting an event, for example, or, kind of go into the fundraising piece a little bit. Under Councilmember Green, we launched what we have every year called the Autism Playdate. And starting out, he was kind of footing all of that out of his own pocket. Then, of course, that gets tough because at-large members don't get the kind of money that district members do. So we had to get creative. That came in with utilizing relationships that he has in different spaces and starting to kind of build a brand for a particular event that you want to start getting contributions for, and the more you do it, the more you fine tune things, and have or data to back up. And when I say data, I mean how many people showed up, what's the point of the event. That then turns into people wanting to support it year in and year out, and thankfully now that is a signature event that people look for. So between his relationships and my outreach to people and protecting those relationships, protecting those communications all the time, that's another thing, because people will reach out and say, yeah, I know someone that went to that event. We're having XYZ type of event, blah, 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 that I think Councilmember Green would really, be interested in supporting. Or Councilmember Vaughn, she's been very outspoken about the gun violence and about the prison escapes. Anything surrounding criminal justice reform, that sort of thing. So I would just say paying attention to who is in certain spaces that you want to tap into.
Thank you. We're going to get to one more question before we get into the audience Q&A. This last question is for you, Denise. We are here in PhillyCam. PhillyCam has helped boosted and leveled up a lot of people's work in the media space. I think of Ernest as really being one of the bright and shining examples of someone who got their start in PhillyCam. If it wasn't for PhillyCam, a lot of people here wouldn't have had the media production or portfolio work that they do now that they're able to leverage and build on. Can you talk a little bit about how PhillyCam has helped you in your work and why people should be interested in kind of going down that route too?
Frankly, if it weren't for PhillyCam, I don't know where Hall Monitor would be right now. There's not a whole lot of interest in a show that focuses completely and totally on city council. Although there should be, because let's face it, no, I'm not talking about you. But I mean, there's not a whole lot of interest outside of City Council Live in a show that focuses on the arcanities of City Council. Larry and I watch council hearings. We go to council hearings. We talk to the folks on council about things that are coming up, things that have to do with, stuff that you're probably not going to read about in your coverage of council. That is like 99.9% of what we do. And the money that we got from Lenfest for Every Voice, Every Vote, we used it to focus on poverty and how poverty impacts the city and how it impacts things like gun violence and everything else. At the center of most of Philadelphia's ills is the problem of poverty. And that is what we used our money to focus on, poverty and voting and how to get people to understand that if there are needs that they have from their city officials, you have to sometimes remind them, we put you in this office, we'll take you out. And I'm grateful to PhillyCam for giving us the space to do that. And we even won an award for it. We won a Hometown Media Award for our coverage of the elections and stuff. So this is a good place to learn how to produce a television show, how to produce a radio show. And it's a good place to learn that without having to worry about whether or not there's a commercial entity hanging over your head telling you what you can and cannot talk about, because I would be willing to bet that if Larry Lance and I did a show on the controversy at the Mutter Museum about what's going on with the bones and stuff there, on any other TV or radio station, they'd have packed us up and moved us out like the next day. But we were able to do that here. Now, was it the best use of our time? That's another story. But we were able to do that here.
Thank you. And Gabriella, you also had a PhillyCam connection too.
Yes, it was. I worked here as a instructor, as a media instructor, and as also a producer for Atrévete, which is the Latino focus news program.
Awesome. So a lot of PhillyCam alum here, a lot of PhillyCam workers here. We're going to open it up to audience Q&A. We'll start with you right there. Yeah, go for it. Oh, yeah, you with the hat. Yeah.
Hi, everybody. Thank you guys so much for your conversation so far. It's been really helpful.
Oh, we have a mic coming to you. Just to get it captured on audio. Thank you. Feel free to introduce yourself, too, if you'd like to.
Hi, I'm Kiara Solomon, founder of the Right Click Agency. And I also host a podcast and do some other cool media stuff. So my question for you guys, specifically in creating these independent platforms for yourself, is about some of the strategies that you are using or have used in the past to expand your audience and get more, whether that's viewership, readership, or reach, particularly when you're talking about topics that are so niche specific, like what you just said, Denise, in regards to city council. It's not a lot of people who necessarily are interested or on surface value, right? Because I think that there are a lot of people who are interested, but what I see often as an obstacle for people on independent platforms is getting that content in front of the people that actually want to hear it and being able to document that data in terms of views or subscribers or whatever other types of analytics you're using to be able to measure that. So can you just speak to those specific things and any strategies that you've been able to use successfully to be able to do that? Thank you. And thank you guys.
Yeah, of course. That's a great question. Who wants to take that one first?
Go ahead.
No, that's a great question because part of the job is production, and then when you realize that you're done, you realize that you're not done because distribution is a whole nother production aspect. It is so laborious. It requires so much strategy behind it. So what we're doing, thinking about presente again, is like being niche, like you said. So our target audience is Latino, Latinx, Latine, people who speak Spanish, people interested in social issues from the Black and brown communities. So, and then Gen Z, if you want to break down from age, Gen Z, millennials, we're speaking mostly. So we target the social media that's mostly accessed by this community. One of our strategies, right? Like Instagram is big for this audience. That's where a lot of this population get their information from. Other part of the population is Facebook, but then we're talking maybe an older audience for Latinos specifically. Another strategy for us is WhatsApp, because a lot of immigrants use WhatsApp to get their news. So you need to think about how you're gonna get your information to people from where they see. Those are some of the ideas. Other thought on how to better get the information there is be bilingual as much as we can. For us, that's super important. And then if we cannot, we're gonna choose strategically what can be in Spanish and what needs to be in English, right? What makes more sense that more American audience understands and what in the opposite. So we need to be very thinking about those aspects.
I'll just add something to that. Just because one of my functions, having worked for 2 council members, I operate both of their social media, all of their social media platforms. So what intimidated me that I had to get comfortable with is paying attention to the analytics and seeing which posts are seen, maybe not, how am I, and I was always very, very cognizant of the tone in which I was writing content on social media. So be conscious of how, if you're representing a specific person or a specific organization, be conscious of the tone with which you're using to post things. And then at the end of the day, if you have boosting capabilities, like with Meta, for example, they have a business suite where that shows you all of those tools and how to use them. And so if you can boost certain posts that you want to be seen or drive different traffic to, use it to your advantage. That was something that I really had to watch carefully, more so under Councilmember Green, given he was in term a little bit longer. So don't be afraid of the numbers. I'll just say that.
And I kind of like to add, know what you don't know. Because, to be honest, what I don't know about getting my content out on social media could probably fill this room and a couple of other rooms. Fortunately, one of my co-hosts, Larry McGlynn, has a cousin who is really, really good at social media. And we give her a little bit of money, and she puts our stuff everywhere. And that helps out a lot. But know what you don't know, because sometimes in the name of getting your content out there, you could commit a major faux pas that could end up having the exact opposite effect. So know what you don't know.
And I'll say to that too is that in relation to what Gabriella was saying is that knowing your audience, be prepared to kind of front load that admin work, right? Do the digging. Who are the people? Who are the individuals talking about this issue? Who are the nonprofits and the other organizations that are doing this work? Who are the people that have been quoted in other media articles that you think might be interesting in talking with you or working with you on a story? Being able to really create that ongoing, it's a laborious task, I know, but really have that online Rolodex of the people and the contacts and the organizations, because once you get them, contacted, especially if email is such a main driver of communication, you're talking about a distribution list through your email chain, right? Creating those listservs so that when you are producing stuff, you know exactly how to segment it out. And then you can also use different tools to track that engagement too. It is a laborious task. If you got the money to have somebody be that partner to do that work with you, or if you are really looking at your budget and saying how much can I finance and segment this off for paying for ads and all that stuff too, do that, because that's going to really ultimately drive your decision making. So you're not wasting your time as well when you work on that too. We are way overdue for time. I'm so sorry, but just want a round of applause for our awesome panelists. Thank you so much. And truly, thank you to our panelists and the panelists for panel 1 for your insight and wisdom. And thank you, everyone, for joining us today for Media Access. We hope you had a fun time as you got to learn from some of the best in media, communication, and the journalism fields here in Philadelphia. So here are, we are going to do, yes, I need the first panelist to come up so that we can do a group photo. But before that happens, the next steps moving forward are we are going to do a Philly Cam tour. So if you want to stick around for the Philly Cam tour, stick around here. In about 5 minutes, we'll do the tour. Otherwise, if you want to get into the lobby, you can go mingle, network, and hang out in the lobby and all that. Oh, okay. No one leave. We're going to do a big group photo first. Yeah. And then, no one leave. Lock those doors. And then we're going to do the Philly Cam tour, okay? All right, y'all, everybody come up here. Big tour, big